friends, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video. And I thought today we would focus on the natal aspect of Venus conjunct Pluto. What happens when we see this in somebody's natal chart? So Venus is that part of us that represents our self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves, how we handle our social relationships, what our style of relating to other people is, a lot about what our sensual desires are, and it really describes our nature when it comes to what makes us feel happy or satisfied, or how we want to be loved. So Pluto is that planet, that represents the 8th house issues in our life, as Venus represents those 2nd and 7th house issues, parts of our life. Pluto really represents the 8th house things that go on within our lives. And that's death, destruction, difficulties, intensity, our deep attachments, and our deepest desires. And where Venus is our sensual desires, Pluto is our absolute desires. So Pluto is also that force of what we choose to not deal with that ends up dealing with us. So it's a very, very important part of our psyche and of our chart. So when we have these two meeting in a conjunction is, an aspect of blending, where two planets are blending together in such a way that they are very much the same force. So it is very difficult to pick apart where one begins and where one ends. And when we have conjunctions, especially multiple conjunctions, it's really speaking about a certain level of complexity within a person. So when we have these two mixing, when we have the love nature and the desire, the deeper desire nature, power nature mixing together, we see great focus when it comes to the things of Venus. Because whatever Pluto aspects, it really casts this laser focus, or this ability to focus, a spotlight of intensity upon something. So that really mixes here in full force with Venus. And of all the Pluto-Venus aspects, this is the one that really shows up with the most intensity, stronger than the square, stronger than the opposition. This is when we really see the depth of the 8th house really coming out in full force in somebody's personality. So these people are very focused on achieving depth, achieving intensity through the meeting of their relationships. Themes of abandonment, crisis, obsession, guilt, all come into play when we have this particular conjunction. So they are looking to love 8th house things. So deep attachment is what they really think they desire. They want to have a love so intense, so close, so deep, that they lose all sense of themselves as an individual and are able to merge completely into another human being. So there's issues with that, with attachment, because that is really the underlying deep motivation here, is to attach. So they tend to express their 8th house issues and the themes of their 8th house things, through their social and their love relationships. So we can see problems with obsession, jealousy, And sometimes they can engender these things in their partners as well. They are very much looking to possess another person, to really possess somebody in a way that they are completely merged, and so their sense of freedom is really not there. It's their concept of relationship and their concept of love involves a certain amount of entrapment. Now, they're not going to understand that or see that going on, or because Pluto is a very, very unconscious force, and it's mixing with actually a very conscious planet, a planet that we actually have a pretty good idea about what goes on in our lives, Venus in second house. So these two mix in such a way where the Pluto is very overpowering to the things of Venus. And so they're very attractive. They're very magnetic. They are very sexy. And they have an intensity about them that is, off the charts. And so they, really show their Pluto in a way that is sometimes off-putting and sometimes extremely attractive, depending on who you are. They can be very repellent to some people and to others irresistible. It just really depends on what your opinion of Pluto is and how attractive you find or don't find, or what issues you have with the 8th house, because these people are very likely to bring that up in others. They get some very strong reactions to the people around them, and usually take that as a confirmation that that's the way the world is. Well, that's their perception of the world, because that's the way the world is for them. And as humans, we're very, 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 very likely to think that the way that we see the world, the way we experience the world, is the way the world is. Where you talk to somebody else with a different birth chart, and they're going to have a completely different perception of what the world is and how people work in it. So this one, they're very entrenched in the ideas that Pluto and resources and intensity are what love is. And they have a very, there's a likelihood when you're dealing with these people for them to give money or to pay too much or to give up their resources as a way to somehow prove their loyalty or their interest or their love, because they equate the things of the 8th with the 2nd in such a close manner. So, they're very, very focused, deeply interested, and typically very loyal when in love with somebody. But they have this thing that they can feel very justified in dropping a relationship or ending a relationship if they deem it lacking in intensity, or lacking in drama, or lacking in, whatever they define as this deep, incredible, intense attachment. That's usually, if you really ask them, if you dig into that, what is your definition of this deep, incredible, intense attachment? A lot of times you're going to get an explanation that involves a certain amount of difficulty, or a certain amount of crisis, or ups and downs between two people, or a makeup, breakup, something, where if that's not going on in their relationships, they can often perceive it as not good enough. It doesn't have value enough to them in order to keep. So people can be very mystified by being involved with these people, because they can be in a relationship that's actually pretty good. It can actually be pretty strong. It may be lacking in difficulty, But then they can have somebody else come into their life that like presents this dark figure or this intense amount of involvement or a great amount of sexual attraction, and they can leave the stable, solid, probably pretty good relationship they're in for this one that presents a certain amount of difficulty or crisis or intensity to them, and feel very much justified in doing that because their definition of love is what this new relationship is bringing to them. So there's a real examination that as these people mature and as they get older of what love is. What really is it? Is it difficulty? Is it the experience of the adrenaline that accompanies the ups and the downs is that love? Because very, very often when we have any aspect from Venus to Pluto, there is an assumed a definition of love that has very much to do with things of the 8th house. The 8th house is an inherently unhealthy house. We have taxes in there for a reason. We have crisis in there for a reason. We have all these things mixed in there for a reason. Sex is in there too, because often it causes us a lot of difficulties. So there really needs to be a certain amount of focusing not on getting that intense relationship, but of the motivations behind why you want it when we have this aspect. Because there is so much acting out when it comes to that trying to attach or trying to get that connection, that they don't connect with their own self. And when they can do that, when they can really turn that desire nature inward, they can become some of the most intensely, what is the word? Just intensely caring, involved people that you have ever seen. So they go from kind of this immature, more selfish, looking to satisfy their own love nature, because there's a huge emphasis on their desires being fulfilled in relationships. After a certain amount of time or a certain amount of maturity, not everybody gets to this point, you know, there's an examination of why is the drama necessary? Why do I equate the 8th house with the 2nd? And this is a very, very insidious combination, because very often when you look back or examine the early life of the people that have this conjunction, there was often a lot of secrets in the home. Sometimes there was violence. Sometimes it was a culture of not speaking about difficulties. These people have this conjunction for a reason. So it's important to examine, you know, the early environment and the messages that were picked up therein, because in that you can find a lot of clues to why you associate the 2nd with the 8th and how you can rebuild that relationship with yourself, with your 2nd house. Because when we have a difficult aspect, and a conjunction between these two is considered difficult because of the nature of Pluto, when we have a difficult aspect between Venus and Pluto, it's talking about a difficulty in valuing ourself, valuing, you know, our self-esteem. These two are mixing for a reason. And these people, when they can really get a hold of this aspect, when enough time or self-examination goes by, when enough honesty has been achieved within their own self as to why they are encountering difficulties, they can really become this beacon of penetrative insight to other people. These people make the most incredible detectives, depth psychologists, astrologers, therapists that you've ever seen, because of the way that they have had to investigate and examine their own love nature. That leads them into a position of being very learned when it comes to the things of the 8th house, and they can then take that into their other relationships and become this incredible help. Whereas before, they were very, very focused on getting their needs met, they come to a point where they are able to focus on meeting the needs of others. So people that, you know, that are oppressed or misaligned or misrepresented, people with this conjunction can really get into their court or on their side and become a real voice, a real advocate for the downtrodden or for the mistreated. These people have a real hard time seeing social injustice or seeing poverty or seeing you know, bullying, you know, governments, totalitarianism. Those are the kinds of things that they can really take their spirit and their forceful nature towards and work towards fixing or modifying or bringing attention to. So it goes from a more of a feed me type of conjunction to I have what you need. I know how to fulfill your desires in a way that is healthy after a certain amount of wrestling with this. So it is one that does present a certain amount of difficulties into people's life that can be very mystifying to them. And but these people are actually really something to be around or to have in your life because of the amount of depth and caring that they can bring if this is handled in a healthy way, this conjunction. So I hope you found this informative. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on the internet at truthinAspectastrology.com. You can find me on Facebook, where you should be following me, because I do a lot of writing over there, articles, birthday descriptions, the daily astrological weather forecast, and all that will be on my new website, which is still being created, is in the works, but it's coming really, really soon. And so you'll be able to access all of that over there. Very soon I'll have lots of new cool things. My new asteroid book is coming out. You can find that at Astrology Wizards on Facebook. And I will be back super soon with more super cool videos. I love your suggestions and your questions, so don't forget to leave those. And bye-bye.